I was in Buffalo recently. I like to watch a lot of murder on TV. I don't know if anybody else does. I love Forensic Files. I can't get enough. I can't go to bed without watching Forensic Files and a Wives with Knives. I don't know what that says about me, but I think it's because it makes you feel like an amazing person. If you watch a few Forensic Files back to back, you'll really think you're running a tight ship in your life. I'm just lying there stuffing pound cake in my face. It's caking watching Forensic Files, and I actually had this thought. I was like, I'm a good person. I don't have the slightest desire to kill a hooker. It's never occurred to me. I was an awkward kid, too. There was this girl in my school, and I just wanted to be her. She just had everything perfect. I was a very slovenly child, and her name was Caitlin, and she had this long blonde silky hair, and I wanted hair like hers. I had this strange, heinous, gnarled fro, and I got this piece of yellow yarn, and I just placed it over my head, and I would just go to school like that. I somehow thought I was fooling everyone into thinking I was a blonde with this one piece of loose string just tangled in my heinous nest hair. And I really wanted her name, so I went to the mall and I had this bracelet made that just said Caitlin, and I would wear it. It was very unstable. I would just wear her name and stare at her I'm Caitlin now. And Christ loves me very, very much. She was one of those girls. She was always all organized and did everything perfectly. Her pencil case was amazing. I'm still very angry about it. Her pencil case was incredible. It could do anything. Little Koreans would jump out and do cartwheels into the air. I'd borrow a pencil from her, and she'd remember a few days later and ask about it. She was one of those girls, she really ran a tight ship. She'd be like, I think on Monday morning in second period, you actually borrowed... I'm like, it's gone, bitch. It's gone. All right? I had a lot of Jaeger. I have no idea where it is right now, so... I'm gonna ask you to let it go, okay? I've been going out with my friends, drinking to meet guys and stuff. I'm having a hard time meeting somebody. I think it's because there are so many princes out there, I don't know which one to choose from. I went out with this guy recently, and he starts narrating our date while we were on it. It was awful. We're out to dinner, and he starts going, tonight, I met a very special girl. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And he kept going with it. He's like, this special lady, she really made me laugh. This special lady, she made me think. It was a real tough puzzle. I was gonna be oh, I'm sick of guessing. Oh, who is she? Oh, I wanna know who the girl in the riddle is. It's not fair. I wanna know the answer right now. Even my tits are confused. And he goes, hey, that special girl I was talking about? That special girl is you. And he actually believed he was going to insert himself inside me at some point after that. And he did, but, thank you. That's because I had 7 Malibu pineapples. I try to go out meeting people with my best friend, too, but it's really hard because she always gets all the attention. She has a very large ass, the kind of ass that men really need time with. They have questions. It's the kind of ass men, they stop, they need help processing it. We were walking this one time, and she passes this guy, just goes, damn, girl, you got that man butt. And did a little shake, too. I was like, she should put that in her wedding vows. That's so romantic. It really is. It's a touching statement. You've got that mad butt. She should. It should be like, do you take this girl with that mad butt to be all up in your bitch? What's up? My mom's always she hates that joke. She's always like, can you please take that out of your talent show? That's what she calls my stand-up, my talent show. Take it out of your talent show, out. My mom's very sassy. My mom's just very sassy. She's got one of those crazy kind of overly spiked mom do's. Her hair just keeps getting more and more aggressive every time I see her. She looks insane. She looks a lot like Vanilla Ice at this point, so... Her hair looks like it was cut by a computer.
And she loves turquoise. She just loves American Indian pieces. She loves anything turquoise. She collects them. She loves anything American Indian at all. She loves it. And she wears a ridiculous amount of these obnoxious, like, plaque-sized things. And then she acts very surprised if anyone compliments one of them. She does a real modest play. She goes, "Oh, thank you. Oh, I forgot that I had this on today. That's so... Isn't that funny? I totally forgot about that. How sweet of you to notice. What fun."
Meanwhile, it's like a Navajo graveyard covering her entire left breast. She really wants to be black or ethnic somehow. It's very embarrassing. Her favorite thing to tell people is that she should have been black. She loves to say this at parties and stuff. It's just really strange. Yeah, it's really problematic. She's always going, you know, people always tell me, they go, "Karen, you should have been black. You dance like you're black." You do. It's true. And you know, it's true. I'm a very soulful dancer, so people really respond to my dancing. It's true. Meanwhile, her dancing is actually so awful it's confusing. Like, I don't know what the hell is going on when she's dancing. I know I don't feel safe. Her dancing is perhaps the most aggressively white thing I've ever seen. She sort of dances like she's stirring herself. It's just this very... And she loved that I was dating a Puerto Rican guy because she felt like it just brought her a little closer to black, just a little closer. Just inching her way over to black, you know. So she invites him prematurely over to our house for a dinner party, and it's us and this gay Unitarian couple she's befriended against their own will, you know. She answers the door. She's wearing some kind of a dashiki. She looks insane. I'm like, I don't know what she's rocking, but I'm going into denial with that nonsense. And then she starts blasting Gloria Estefan, which is Cuban music. It doesn't even make any sense, but she's just... And then so she's blasting Gloria Estefan. My mom wants to be like one of those white women in the movies that saves a black school, that puts on a leather jacket and just saves a black school. That's her dream, you know? Like Michelle Pfeiffer in Dangerous Minds, just marches in there with her sassitude and just fixes everything. Just talks straight. Has some fun. She's always trying to set me up with some kid I used to take baths with when I was like 3, too. She's always like, "You and Darren Biedermeier should get together." Sure, he hasn't come out of his room in a while, and when he did, he was wearing a long black cape, but I just thought he dealt with that schizophrenic diagnosis so well. It was so manly the way he handled that, wasn't it? And you know, he loves rhythmic gymnastics, which is a lot like stand-up, so I think you guys would really hit it off. Her and all her friends are insane. Like, my mom has this friend named Sandy Pasternak, and she actually introduces herself to people like this. She goes, "Hi, I'm Sandy Pasternak. Let the pastor keep napping. Let's have some fun." See, that's not okay. And every time I see her at a party or a function or something, she'll give me this kind of like we're both naughty wink from across the room. Like every time I see her, she kind of like we're on the same page, me and Sandy, you know? Every time I see her, she always goes, like we're gonna steal a car together later. And my grandmother's at this age now where she's so old, she's suspicious. She's just walking around like, what the hell is going on? What is this? She's furious. She's like, what is it? My mom's always like, no, Grandma's fine. We got her cable. She's fine. I'm like, really, who cares that she's constantly terrified as long as she has showtime? That makes a lot of sense. The other thing about like starting a new relationship that's overwhelming is there's so many awkward things that can happen when you first hook up with somebody. You know, I think that's sometimes just why I stay with the last person. Just to start over again is so overwhelming. Like, first of all, this last guy that I was with, we left the TV on the first time we hooked up, which is a bad idea because something really humiliating can come on and you'll be in the heavy stages of the hookup and you can't just stop and address it, you know? Like, we're in the middle of hooking up and this infomercial about some sort of a penis-enhancing drug came on. It was so horrifying. And it just kept going on and on because it was an infomercial. It was just preying on every man's worst fears. It was just like these hot, greased Russian whores talking about how they could not find a large enough to satisfy them and how they'd search the lands. It's just these like hot, greased skanks out at the discotheque like, I'm sorry, Vlad, but I need a man with a very massive penis, okay? We tell the men we doesn't care about size and rah, but I mean, it's complete bullshit. Am I right, ladies? I didn't leave breadline in my country to come over here for some sort of a mediocre pencil. I'm sorry, ladies. Natasha, remember when you meet your husband on the internet after he purchased you for 27 Louis Vuitton original handbag? And you come over here and I'm sorry, medium penis, not so big, get out of town, am I right, ladies, huh? When I meet my boyfriend after I am trolling for men with American Express black card in VIP nightclub section, and I see that he does not have horse snaking down his leg, I'm pretty pissed off, huh? I went out with this guy recently. He wasn't a douche, but he was a tool. I feel like there's an important difference. I think a douche is way worse than a tool. Like a douche is like some guy named Chad and his parents have a lake house and he likes to girls there side by side next to his best friend Tucker and they high five while they're him, you know, like. But I feel like a tool is not as bad as a douche. Like if you could read a transcript of a douche's thoughts, you'd be furious by the time it was over, you know? But a tool's thoughts would just be more mild and oblivious. Like a tool would just kind of be like, nah. Game 7, nah. I like to wear socks and flip-flops and I wear my shorts all year round because I'm an individual. Where are my sunglasses? Oh yeah, they're on the back of my neck.
I'm a very lazy person. I don't know if any of you guys are lazy. Thank you. I wake up at around... I wake up at around 12 or 1, and I still feel as if I can't quite hurl myself immediately into the day. So I try to do something slow that establishes confidence, like I'll watch The Fabulous Life of 50 Cent, you know? The other day I was laying around the house and I found one of my roommate's pornos. It was really weird. It was actually called Deep Inside Rachel's Rear, and that's right. It was it's very confusing for me, not just because my name's Rachel, but there's almost something a little too enchanting about that title, you know, like it sounds like the beginning of an old Welsh children's novel. Like deep inside Rachel's rear, in a land far away, where there are plenty of nooks and crannies to hide in. And wonderment around every corner. You know, the thing with me and porno is I don't get offended by porn. I just have a hard time getting lost in it the way I can in some other feature films. Because the women always seem very annoyed to me in most pornos. Like, they make the same noises I make when I have to move furniture, you know? Like, oh, God, oh, come on, give it to me. You can put it anywhere, go ahead. It's okay if you stain it, it's used. Or when they do this thing, they always look back at the guy, like all of a sudden they're having second thoughts. I find that very confusing. They always act like they're a little angry, maybe a little resentful that someone's screwing them. Like, oh yeah, you know, it? I was a weird kid. Nobody ever taught me how to be a proper woman. You guys just looked at me like we've already figured that out. You
need to make some sort of a separate announcement about that. I had this nanny, and she would give me a lot of advice, but there was something wrong with her. I'd just be playing with my dolls on the floor, and she'd be like, "Only whores wear purple." I'm like, what just happened? She had a lot of specific rules about whores that she taught me. They weren't particularly helpful. She'd just be like, "Only whores carry suitcases." I'm like, really? That's it? You just carry a suitcase and you're a godless whore. She goes, "Yes, I'll tell you what they have in those little slut satchels. They have all kinds of creams and rinses to cover up their whoring. That's what they have in there. Little perfumes and lotions. Little Tinkerbell powders to cover up the rancid things they've done. Knee pads and mouthwash. That's what they have in those slut sacks. Good night. Sleep tight." That's how she tucked me in, you guys. Lots of whore warnings and then lights out for everyone. She had the world separated into types of whores. We'd be just walking down the street on a lovely day, and she'd be like, "You see that over there? She's an Eastern Seaboard whore." I'm like, what could that possibly mean? She goes, "You see that whore? She probably goes to work with men." I'm like, a lot of them do that now. She goes, "Not in my day, only whores worked." Then she goes, "My father heard a rumor that we wanted to work, so he sat us down and set us straight." I like that she said he heard a rumor that they wanted to work, like it was some sort of a foul thing that was getting around town. He probably came back from his day at the plant and lit up a fat cigar, and he was just like, "I hear you skirts want to work in buildings with men. I told you, you don't need to work. You could stay home and make cupcakes and giggle. You like giggling, don't you?" She was probably innocent once. She was probably like, "It's true, Papa, we do want to go outside sometimes. It's not just a nasty rumor. I'm afraid it's true. Why, sometimes we get bored at home." "I told you, Holes, if you get bored, you can practice looking at a pretty pattern or doing a twirl. You'd like that, wouldn't you?" "Yeah, we twirled for a lot of hours, Papa, but I want to go out and do something. Wouldn't that be exciting? Me doing something. Come on, Papa." "No, Papa, I want to do something more fun. I can't be a cheerleader forever." "Yes, you can. You'll be a paper shaker until you're 30, and then you've gone rancid. We talked about that." "But, Papa, I want to do something exciting. I mean, sometimes I get bored, and I'm sure it'll be hard outside, and if I try to do something big, I know it'll be difficult, and my tits will get confused. I'd like to be a pilot. Imagine that. Me. Oh, sure, it'd be scary, but come on, Papa, let me try it." "Are you crazy? What's next? You start wearing wristwatches and having opinions?" "Well, then maybe I could be a stewardess. Come on, Papa, imagine that. Me, a waitress on a plane. And again, sure, my tits would get confused sometimes, but I'd like to try it. Come on, please, Papa, let me try it." "That sounds like an opinion to me. Why don't we take you down to the old lobotomy factory and take a nice sweet chunk out of your brain, the talking back part?" "No, I don't want to go to the lobotomy factory. Ever since Mildred came back, she's useless. Now all she does is flap around and spit in the corner." Stay with me, guys. I know this is getting weird. Come on, Papa, please. Let me be a waitress on a plane at least. I know I'm just a woman, but I want to try. "You can't be a waitress on a plane. Only whores carry suitcases." That was it, you guys. The end of their hopes and dreams. Her parents would always play those old films from the 40s, and it seemed so interesting to me when I was a girl, because I was like, it seems so easy to be a woman when you watch those films. The women in those old films never had to do anything. They were just these wild morons. They were always lost in the woods, doing a lot of crawling, it seemed like. Like, they were so dumb, they sort of scared themselves. And the men would have to go find them, like they were some kind of like a pet that got away. He'd be like, don't you run off like that. You know that brain's not made for thinking.
They'd be like, oh, Johnny, well, it was real scary like out there. I try to do all sorts of things on my own, Johnny, like have opinions, real opinions. And you weren't there to beat me with the opinion stick, Johnny. No, it's scary out here. I just want to go home and make cupcakes and giggle. I love giggling, Johnny. Oh, I'm scary out here. I'm very scared. Oh, Johnny, never leave that screen open again.
That's how she gets out. She gets out through the screen. The same thing could happen to your women tonight. You have to be very careful. You need to fasten that screen or they're going to escape and form opinions. If you don't fasten the screen, they will escape and you'll have to find them and thrash them with the opinion stick. I also like that at that time, men would always order for women in restaurants. They actually believed that the women were probably too dumb to know what their own stomachs wanted. There's probably a broad that got a little cocky, a little out of line. She tried to order for herself one night, like, I think I'll have the pot roast. And some guy was like, God damn it, Sally, shit! What the just happened? You've humiliated me now! From the waiter and God knows who else heard, Sally. Come to think of it, how have you even gotten outside? You definitely should not be sitting in front of me right now. Ordering for yourself is an opinion and you'll be thrashed severely for this shit, Sally.